Yeah. Okay. We are taking the agenda as published, apart from the fact there is an Agenda B for tonight, which also relates to the premises at 53, 55 the Broadway, Joel Street, Northwood. So there are two items in relation to that. We will do them consecutively because that is more helpful. There are items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and then Agenda B are all Part 1 and are in public. I have one enforcement report in Part 2. When we get to Part 2, we switch off the live feed and obviously there is no audience for that element of our business. Tonight's meeting is on the Council's YouTube site and is being beamed live. All of those who are sitting around me now are currently visible. Those of you in the audience are anonymous. If you come up to speak at that table, you will at that point be visible. I would ask everyone to make sure that they use their microphones because otherwise it's very difficult to follow what's going on the YouTube. Usual health and safety, we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm goes off, please, we will treat it as real. It's out the door that's currently propped open, and that's because this room's getting a little warm tonight. The normal best way out of this building is through the double doors straight ahead of you, not the doors you would have come up, and down the spiral staircase, and that takes you out to the forecourt, or there's a fire exit behind me. I ask please that all mobile phones are switched off or at least silent. There are a number of petition items tonight, 1, 2, 3 of them. The only thing I could ask, in particular as we've got the door open, is when you leave, could you leave quietly and make your way away from the doors, because we have a reasonable length agenda and I'd obviously like to get through it. Members have had the reports that were published just over a week ago, so they will have considered those. Officers will give us a presentation on each item, together with some slides, which will show relevant plans in relation to the items. The items where we have a petition, which is items 6, 7 and 8, petitioners get 5 minutes to address us. Watch the traffic lights, you get 4 green. When it goes amber, you have a minute left. When it goes to red, you are finished. Item 6, the petition is actually from the applicant, so there's no additional. I'm not going to allow the applicant a double go at this. You get 1 go. In relation to items 7 and 8, they are petitions and objections, so the applicants or their agents have a right to address us if they are here, and I will ask them at that point. Ward councillors have a right to address us on any item. Councillor Morgan will be interested in items 10 and whatever I call the other one that's in agenda item B. I'm not aware that any other ward councillors are planning to join us tonight. Okay, voting members of committee tonight. I'm going to go left down the table just to, because otherwise I lose myself occasionally. Councillor Oswald, Councillor Sansapori, Councillor Dott. Going this way down the table, Councillors Flynn, Councillor Hagger, Councillor Melvin, Councillor Higgins and Councillor Goddard. The bright amongst you would have worked out there are 8 of them. If they manage to get to a 4-all tie, I get a vote. They've tried a couple of times recently to get very close to making me vote, but not yet. Alan Tilley is doing highways. Matt Kalashevsky is our planning team manager and will be presenting. James Rogers, the head of planning, offers advice as required. Liz Penny is our clerk from Democratic Services and... Oh yes, and is responsible for the orange feedback forms that are sitting there. If you wish to give us feedback on tonight's meeting, please do. And Democratic Services is always grateful for it. And Glenn Eagle is our legal advisor. That's all the formalities dealt with. I'm going to go straight to item 6, please. Woodlands Care Home, 84 Long Lane, Ickham.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is for the erection of a 2-storey rear extension to provide an additional 14 bedrooms to the existing care home. Just take members through some of the slides. The site is situated on the western side of Long Lane. It currently comprises 2 detached 2-storey dwellings set back approximately 12 metres from the road. The southernmost building, number 84, is the larger building, extended with a 2-storey flat-roofed extension to the rear and accommodates the care home with an existing 18 rooms. So it's, if you look at the plan in front of you, it's the one to the south, slightly, the larger one there. The northern side is number 84A, which is formerly a family house, which is now used as a day centre and offices for the managers. To the rear, there is a large area of open space. I'll just take members to the existing layout there. To the rear is a large area of open space providing a landscape garden area and a gravelled car park. To the front of the buildings, the area is laid out to hard standing, providing 10 visitor parking spaces. It is bound to the north and east and west by residential properties. To the south is the Dewey Martyrs Catholic Secondary School, and the site is also located within the Ickenham Village Conservation Area. So I'll just take members through some more slides. So you've got the existing layout, the proposed layout there. You can see here you've got the existing care home with a day centre here, and the proposal to the rear, which as you can see is quite considerably larger than the existing building. Another site plan here, we can see the proposed extension to the rear. Some proposed existing ground floor plans and elevations, some more existing elevations and floor plans. Here's the proposed ground floor plan with the extension to the rear there for the 14 additional rooms. Just members are aware that we received an amended plan today, sorry, that makes a few alterations which I will go through shortly, and then I'll just take members through the photos. There's an aerial of the site, which is the Woodlands care home as it currently looks. The care home number 8, and then the day centre right next to it. And if you look at this photo, the extension will actually be to the rear of number 84, and it will be visible in that gap, so it will fill out that gap. And just some more site photos. There's a day centre again, and some contextual photos. The rear of the site, unfortunately, they haven't come out too clearly in this daylight. That's the back with a porter cabin to the rear as well, and just some more views of neighbouring properties, etc. The existing care home is already very large within its plot. Most of the domestic character has gone, and its garden has been lost to car parking. The proposed extension to the rear would completely block the visual gap. I'll just show members the proposed elevations, which show this quite well. Where are we? If I can find it, that is. Open up. The proposed extension to the rear would completely block the visual gap between the care home and the day centre. The proposal is therefore considered unacceptable due to both to its scale and location, as it fails to preserve or enhance the Ickenham Village Conservation Area. The proposed building is set back behind the existing buildings to the front. The nearest residential properties to the rear are numbers 17 and 19 Gilby Close, which will be separated by approximately 26 metres from the two-storey element of the proposals. To the south are the adjacent school buildings, whilst to the north is number 82, which is separated by approximately 19.4 metres. The property is set at a slight angle, which is about 10 degrees to the application site, and is orientated towards to the shared boundary. It has two first-floor windows, which would appear to be within a 45-degree line of sight, with the nearest bedroom window. If I just take you to the proposed layout again. So 84 is down there, and the window is just behind Councillor Sainsbury's head, but there would be in that location there. So 84 is there, and they're in this location here. So yeah, it has two first floor windows, which would appear to be within a 45-degree line of sight, with the nearest bedroom window of the extension at a distance of approximately 20 and 20.6 metres. Now, the proposed amended plans that we received this morning, they slightly alter the layout of room, I think it is room number 32, so that the windows are slightly realigned. What that does is to address part of reason for refusal 2, so the privacy element has gone. That's why in the addendum, if I take members to the addendum now, in the addendum we are seeking to amend reason for refusal 2 to remove reference to the loss of privacy, as this has been overcome by the plans received today. Just going back through the addendum, we're also going to amend the summary on page 5, which refers to number 83 Long Lane. That should read number 82. We also just want to clarify the response on page 11 to the direct care provision comments. just to clarify that the original objections remain, and also just to clarify that we have got these replacement plans that we'll receive this morning. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Matt. The petition on this one, as I indicated, was in support. It's Andrew Campbell. If you'd like to come to the desk, if you press the button on the middle of the microphone, it will light up, and then we will start the timing once you begin to speak.
Good evening, Chairman, committee members and councillors. My name is Andrew Campbell. I'm the proprietor and registered manager of Woodlands Care Home in Ickenham, and have been working at the care home for the past 20 years. Woodlands Care Home has been part of the local community since the 1980s, and I've personally witnessed the big changes within the local vicinity over the years. Woodlands Care Home was originally registered as a residential care home, with it becoming specialised in dementia care in 2014. The profile of the care home occupants has changed markedly over the past 5 to 10 years. I need to adapt the care home to ensure that I can continue to meet their ever-changing needs, to be person-centred, holistic, dignified, while maintaining as much independence as possible for my residents. In June 2019, the Homes Inspectorate, the Care Quality Commission, undertook an inspection, with the home being awarded Outstanding for Care. I'm striving to give the highest standard of care possible for my residents, which is why I have applied for this extension, as it will give the home much more space to provide additional facilities. One of the features that will work with this extension is that there will be different parts of the building with not being in one big block. My vision is that our residents will feel like they are going to different places, as we look to provide different themes throughout the extension to help with their stimulation and in some cases anxiety. My proposition will create much needed space and will interlink with the day centre, particularly with regard to social and community interaction for clients who find themselves isolated and lonely. A pre-application form was submitted to planning on the 31st of October 2018. We had a very positive meeting with the planning consultant on the 7th of January, and on the 20th of March I received a pre-application conclusion that they considered this extension to be acceptable in principle. In light of this positive report, I then went ahead and applied for a full application to put an extension on the current building. A further 6 months down the line, in September 2019, I was hugely disappointed to find that my application was being recommended for refusal by the Conservation Officer. Having paid £900 for the application, it was assumed that Conservation would have been involved in the review at this imminent stage, to which any issues raised could have been reviewed with a resolution on both parts. I understand that the Conservation's main concern is that they feel that this extension is too bulky, leaving a gap in between the two buildings. There are two recent developments, 66 and 88 Long Lane, where single dwellings were demolished and blocks of flats were built using the full width of the plot in both cases. What I'm proposing is nowhere as big in mass and will enable me to carry out work with minimal disruption to my residents, which is my ultimate aim. Having taken Conservation's views on board, I wish to work with the Council to achieve the best outcome for elderly residents, and would be more than accepting to look at including some cladding effect onto the building, which will harmonise, soften and make the scheme more aesthetically pleasing. Conservation has a remit they need to work to, but given a number of new developments that are all different and varying in sizes, having named just two, I should also like to mention Swakeleys Road, where there are numerous developments where private dwellings have been designed into blocks of flats. Woodlands Care Home is situated on Long Lane with Dowie Martha School adjacent to it. The school has undertaken numerous improvements to meet their ever-changing needs for their students. Woodlands Care Home, no different, whereby my scale of proposal is to older, vulnerable people without prejudice or discrimination. Having received a tremendous amount of support from local residents and encouragement from families and potential families, along with a petition of over 100 signatures which planning have received. This is not a short investment, but a lifelong project where I hope to serve our community for many years to come. Our great borough says we are striving to put our residents first. In conclusion, I would like to invite you all to visit Woodlands Care Home to see the scope of opportunities that can be provided should this scheme be granted.
Thank you. Members have any comment at this stage? No. Thank you very much. If you just turn the microphone off for me, I'd be grateful. Perhaps the head of planning might offer me some comments on the apparent gap between the pre-app advice and what I have before me.
What members have here is effectively there is the benefits of the proposal that the applicant is outlining, and then there is harm to the conservation area. So there's a balancing act here. And what the position of officers has always been that a large extension would be supported. What the report, which is the final position of the local planning authority in effect on this application, is that we think it's just too big, the proposal. So we would support a large extension to this property, but the footprint, as Matt explained, and the scale bulk of the proposal, it is absolutely huge in its scale. There is the possibility for a large extension to the care home, but officers just feel this is just too big, and it is in a conservation area, and that's why that there is some comprehensive comments over 2 pages from the council's conservation officer outlining where they consider there is harm. The other thing that doesn't help the applicant is, although I'm not going to dispute that there is benefits of this proposal, clearly there is, the council in terms of its role in providing sort of care facilities, the council is confident it can meet demand, so there isn't that additional layer of support that might help the applicant if the council had a deficiency or a problem. So that doesn't help matters either. But yes, I am aware that there might be a slight disparity between the pre-application advice and the final report, but officers are trying to do this difficult balance between the benefits of the proposal and the harm in the conservation area. And as I say, I just think it is too big, the proposal. I think if there was a reduced scale proposal, we could come up with a favourable recommendation, but not for the plans as submitted.
Thank you. That adds some clarity to the thing. Councillor Higgins, you can start me off.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to defer it. I'd like it to go back to the applicant so it can actually make amendments so it is adhering to the policy. I don't know what the time frame is on this. It has a very good reputation, and I think that it's something that we should really look at and try and help if we can. So I'd like officers to see whether it's possible. I'll think about that for a moment, but there are some issues that I'm about to bring out. Councillor Flynn, I'll hear him and then I'll...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It strikes me that this is one of these occasions where public policy and planning collide, because I'm sure all of us around this table this evening will have a lot of sympathy with the care home and obviously the people that they're doing a fantastic job of looking after and their families, but obviously we also are here as a planning committee and we have to base our decisions on planning reasons alone, and in this instance the site is in a conservation area, and obviously that has to be carefully considered in our decisions. So I would hope a sensible negotiation could potentially take place in due course with the applicant and officers to try and come up with something that can work, and the head of planning has obviously given some indications that might be possible in due course, but it does appear from what we're being presented here with this evening that what is being proposed is inappropriate given the location and given the conservation area protection. So I am minded to support the officer's position on this.
If that, Councillor Oswald?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Likewise, very sympathetic to the petitioner. Simply, I mean, I lost my mother-in-law to dementia, so I do have quite an understanding of that. I'm tending to agree with Councillor Flynn, because I think that maybe the best thing to do tonight is to move the officer's recommendation and hope that the applicant goes back to planning and tries to get something that he can actually have, because obviously we're sympathetic also with conservation areas, and it's trying to preserve them. We don't want to open any doors that we can't close behind us. I've never wanted to do that, as long as all the years I've sat on planning committees. I'll second the recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, let me just take the referral. I'm at the work.
So, just a point of reference that I think might help committee. This is the first application, so if the applicant were to resubmit, it would be a free go. So, if it was the second or third, then there might be issues, but it's the first go, so if it's refused, the applicant can resubmit, free go, and we will work with the applicant if they're willing to submit a smaller scheme.
Okay, I have some sympathy with the deferral idea. The risk of that is that the applicant might wish to have a decision that then enables him to pursue an appeal if he wishes to go down that road, and otherwise we're risking an appeal for non-determination, which then winds up as another urgent item back on my list. I have enormous sympathy with what the applicant has said, but I do think this one has just tipped over into being too large. The best way forward would be for the applicant to work with the planning department closely and with the head of planning to actually understand in detail what would be acceptable, and I think there is an acceptable scheme. It is in the conservation area, but it is also in a particular part of the conservation area surrounded on several sides by a school. So it's a slightly different bit to the central Ickenham bit that we're generally used to looking at. Councillor Higgins, do you want one more point before
Just
I...
one point. I mean, the applicant has had a discussion with the planning department. The planning department advised him. He has done what is requested of him, and it comes back. That's the reason I asked for deferral. I'm not asking that... Yes, I can understand there is that chance that he would...
and I believe he has been pushing for a decision, so
yeah,
that's
well,
what I'm told.
If that's fine, then if that's the case, then that's the thing. But I do have sympathy for people that go through the planning department and they get advice and then we come here again. I mean, it's not the first time. I'm sure it won't be the last, but that's where I stand on this. So.
No, I take your point, but I understand that a decision is being pushed for, so on that basis we are forced to make one. I would like to just send it back and let it be worked on again, but that isn't really an option I've got. So we are proposed and seconded. All those in favour of supporting the officer report for refusal, show me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are you abstaining, Councillor Higgins? Thank you. That one is refused. I do hope, though, the applicant can work with the head of planning to come up with an acceptable scheme for this site. 21 Maxwell Road northwards, a change of use application.
Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks planning permission for the change of use from A1 retail to D1 preschool nursery to include the replacement of the shop front, installation of windows, roof lights and a kitchen ventilation system. The proposed nursery will provide rooms for a total of 43 children. I'll take members through the slides. See in red, pink, sorry, that's the site there. Just on Maxwell Road, off the main Green Lane. These are the proposals, show you the proposed internal layout. It's not that clear on there, but this is the proposed flue. You can see it just here above that flat roof, and it's fairly close to the residential properties at the back there. Just take members through a few photos. Some of you may be familiar with the site. It's currently vacant. Just showing you the parking on the street there at the moment. Just internal. The rear of the site. Again, just for some context, quite a few photos there. Various things at the back. I'll just take you back through to the front. In fact, I'll take you through, leave you on the slide of the proposal. The application site has been vacant since September 2018. Oh, sorry, I haven't actually finished. The Maxwell Road site, the site is located on the southeast end of Maxwell Road. The proposed site is a commercial property with A1 retail use on the ground floor and offices above. The proposed is located in the Green Lane, Northwood Town Centre, Green Lane, Northwood Primary Shopping Area and the Conservation Area. The application site has been vacant since September 2018 and a marketing report was provided in support of the proposed. The proposed site was marketed for 12 months, beginning from March 2018 until March 2019. According to the updated retail survey figures from October 2019 of the Northwood Primary Shopping Area, the retail frontage within A1 use is currently at 57.5%, which is below the minimum 70%. The granting permission to this unit would further erode the retail function and would result in a separation of more than 12 metres between A1 retail uses. Within the primary shopping area, there is a low level of vacancy, and the only vacant A1 unit is the application site. And as such, this indicates there is a demand for A1 units in the area. In the absence of further evidence to justify the proposed change of use, it would further reduce the proportion of retail uses within the town centre. Therefore, there is an in-principle policy objection to the proposals. The Council's Highways Officer has reviewed the application and considers that the proposed would lead to concerns of inappropriate parking, the hindering of free flow of traffic and posing a risk to road safety. Therefore, an objection is raised in this regards. Members are asked to note that there is no car parking or drop-off pickup area being proposed. In terms of impact on neighbours, the nearest residential dwelling is approximately 80 metres away from the application site. The kitchen ventilation system proposed is located on the first floor rooftop at the rear of the premises with ducting to the ground level kitchen area. On the basis of its location, it is unlikely there would be any visual impact from a street scene. However, the system will be highly visible to neighbouring occupiers of upper floor premises and adjacent properties. The Council's EP officer has been consulted and has raised an objection due to the low level extraction unit. The proposed location is considered inadequate for cooking odour dispersal, and there is a likelihood that smells will impact on neighbours. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I have a petition on this one. Mr. Sherling.
Good evening. I'm Trevor Sherling, Planning Officer for the Northwood Residents Association and the lead petitioner. May I state first of all, the Northwood Residents Association does not object to the principle of nursery schools, but believes this is the wrong location and the wrong property. We produced a petition before seeing the Planning Officer's report, which has highlighted several reasons for recommending refusal of the application. We endorse them, and so today we'll pick out the main points and not repeat the detail. We have three main grounds for objecting. First, we believe this property is wrong because of the lack of on-site car parking for staff and, more important, for parents to drop off and pick up their children. It's been stated there'll be a maximum of 43 children together with 12 full-time employees. The applicant's travel plan suggests the public highway can be adequately used for dropping off and picking up children, but we question whether that can work given it is a busily used road throughout the day. There are two pay and display parking spaces directly outside, but if they are in use, we question the likelihood of parents using the two disabled car spaces and the loading bay. There is limited parking elsewhere in the vicinity, but even then across a busy road and close to a junction. The Planning Officer's report details the justification of this concern over the temptation for inappropriate parking in unsuitable locations whilst dropping off and picking up nursery-age children, causing an adverse impact on traffic flow and safety, and we endorse that comment. Secondly, we object on the grounds of the change of use away from retail bank restaurant use in a long-established retail location and within the Northwood Conservation Area. Again, the Planning Officer's report highlights the impact of losing a unit with A1 use in some detail, and again we endorse that view. Thirdly, and in addition, there is concern at the lack of any open play space area and the relatively limited window space, and so question the property's suitability for the proposed use. For that reason, because of the period of time, the children will have to stay indoors and without fresh air. So we at the NRA endorse the planning officer's recommendation that the application be refused.
Thank you very much. Any member questions? Nope, thank you. If you just turn the microphone off for me, thank you. Is anyone here on behalf of the agent or the applicant for this one? No hands go up, so we'll take that as a no. And I'll go Councillor Oswald, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's not going to work, is it? Can you imagine what it's going to be like in the mornings and in the afternoons? There's no parking provision for staff for a start, but there's no way that people, well, I couldn't imagine what it's going to be like. I just can't, not with all those children, it is not going to work. I'm going to move the officer's recommendation for refusal.
I'll hold that just to hear my colleagues, but they might be wishing to do something very similar.
I will second that. I mean, it's a no-goer, I'm afraid.
Right. Councillor Flynn, did you wish to add?
I was merely going to say, as probably the only member of this committee who frequently visits children's nurseries for purely family reasons at a regular basis.
I'm glad you added that clarification for me.
The parking is just the killer really for me. I do have a bit of sympathy actually on the retail point, because there are quite a lot of units actually on the Green Lane area that have been vacant for some time. But I've also had a child that recently went to Norfolk College, and the traffic on Maxwell Road at peak times, as no doubt Councillor Melvin will testify, is very bad at peak times. So the parking just makes this a non-starter in my view, unfortunately, because I do have sympathy with people trying to set up children's nurseries.
No, absolutely, but this is just in the wrong place, I think would be a summary of that. We are proposed, we are seconded. Do you want to add a very quick comment, because it doesn't need much more?
No, it doesn't need much more, but the actual building itself is extremely small anyway to attempt to turn into a nursery for 43 children. So there's just no way, and I just reiterate on the parking and the traffic along that road.
We might have got deeper into that had the rest of it worked, but it doesn't. We are proposing seconded to support the officer recommendation for refusal for reasons shown. All those in favour of refusal, please show me. Thank you. That one's refused. Right, I now move to 17 Woodgate Crescent Northwood, agenda item 8. That's please.
Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks retrospective permission for the retention of a single-storey extension to the rear of an existing storage building. I'll just take members through the slides. The application property is here. And I can show you actually here. The proposed, the existing outbuilding, the extension has been built onto this unit you can see here. So there. And it's actually in that top left corner along the boundary with number 15. That's where it's been built. So I'll just take members. These are the as-built plans. So you have, the as-built plans are here. The extension, as you can see in black. It's existing property. Some other outbuildings in the garden that exist do not form part of this application. This isn't part of it. I don't know why the photo's in there. Here you can see part of the outbuilding. I'll just take members to the pertinent photos. So this is the existing structure. This element here has been rebuilt, and to the rear of that you've got the extension. This is a photo from the neighbouring property at number 15 from the patio area. You can see here the structure there that has been erected. So I mean, part of it was a brick wall before, red brick wall. It's now been fully sort of rendered in sort of cement and extends away down. And you can see that's another outbuilding that's been built to the rear of it, but we're only considering the actual extension element. It is considered, I'll have some more photos just of the garden area of the property. I'll leave you with a photo that we can actually see it. The extension is considered to fail to harmonise. This application property comprises a two-storey detached dwelling in a substantial plot with a large paved driveway to the front and garden areas to both sides and the rear, and is located within the Gatehill Farm estate Northwood area of special local character. The extension which I've just talked you through is considered to fail to harmonise with the architectural composition of the existing outbuilding and would be detrimental to the character, appearance and visual amenities of the Gatehill Farm estate area of special local character. The existing extension is also considered to be detrimental to the amenities of the adjoining occupiers at number 15, Woodgate Crescent, by reason of over-dominance, overshadowing, visual intrusion, loss of light and loss of outlook. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Petitioners in objection, Oliver Hahn and Satinder Abari. Okay. If you're doing it together, you know you're sharing 5 minutes. Yes, sir. I'd just like to be clear, just in case anybody thinks anything else.
Good evening, Chairman and committee members. My name is Oliver Hahn and I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, who lives next door to the application site. We are grateful for officers visiting my mother's property to view the coal shed extension and the 2 other new buildings from her living room, so that the effect of these buildings can be appreciated. None of the new buildings have planning permission nor building control approval. Each one is the size of a habitable dwelling, one containing a bathroom and one with a kitchen. This application deals solely with the shed extension. The plans which have been submitted do not accurately reflect the buildings which were previously there and do not accurately reflect what has been built. Photographs of the sheds and greenhouse which were previously at the site have been submitted to officers. The small, low, red brick coal shed, which could not be seen from my mother's property through the trees, bushes and boundary hedge, has been replaced by a much higher and much longer breeze block and render building. This new building is over double the height of the previous coal shed and runs along the boundary to a length of over 8 metres. It is much higher than is usually allowed for a single-storey extension to a house, and as my mother's house is set at a lower level, the roof of this new shed appears to be actually at the first floor level. As there is such a small gap of only 40 centimetres between this building and the next new breeze block and render building, they blend together to give the effect of one even longer building which runs down the boundary to a length of over 16 metres, creating a rather depressing sense of enclosure. It has created a dull and overbearing outlook for my mother. The neighbour's house was built in 1923 of Edwardian style and built entirely of red brick, including the beautiful ornamental pediment adjacent to the garage. The low outbuildings, greenhouse base and even the gate posts were red brick. A flat-roofed, breeze-block building with concrete render is not in keeping with the rest of the property and is contrary to policy in this area of special local interest. Rubble and concrete from the demolition work have been piled over an exposed black membrane adjacent to the new shed to a depth of over 40 centimetres on my mother's property. This has not been marked on the applicant's plans, neither has the new step into the full-height doorway in the front of the pediment or front of the building. These show that there has been a significant alteration in the natural levels at the site, attempting to hide the true height of the new building. The rubble and concrete have been piled up against my mother's trees, causing damage to them, and is now slowly washing into her garden. My mother's conifers have been cut back to their trunks, several of her bushes and trees have been removed, and all the tall boundary hedge has been removed in addition. So instead of looking out onto a natural green screen, she now looks at an incredibly long, dreary and oppressive and unnecessarily high wall which extends along 2/3 of the boundary. We are honestly shocked that anyone would build 3 new buildings the size of habitable dwellings without seeking planning permission and or building control approval first. We hope that you will refuse this unneighbourly application, and we thank you very much for allowing us to address you.
Chairman, my name is Satinder O'Brien, and on behalf of the Gatehill Residents Association, I would just like to add that the association supports the refusal of this application for the reasons which have been mentioned by the officer and Oliver. Northwood Residents Association also supports the refusal of this application.
Okay, good. Members have any questions? Nope. Thank you both very much. On behalf of the agent or the applicant, Mr. Shah, I have you on my list. Can you put your microphone on there for me, because otherwise it won't come out on the audio. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, councillors and members of the committee. The reasons the works needed to be done was that some years back there was a branch from the pine trees adjacent which fell on the ornamental front facade. The wall fell down, the roof collapsed, and there was damage to the storage shed on the left-hand side. You can see the picture from the other side where the roof is collapsed, and behind the roof were two very large fuel tanks. The bottom picture shows that the fuel tanks were rusty, in a bad state, and potentially hazardous. This is the location of the extension, which is 5 meters by 2.5 meters. It's at the rear of the existing storage area, and it's the same height as it was before. You can see the clear gap, roughly of about 8 meters between number 17 and number 15. So it's not adjacent to the next door property. There's quite a lot of gap between the two. This is an overlay from a Google map image to illustrate where that extension is. It's the single story extension, and it's 8 meters, as I said earlier. This is the picture from Woodgate Crescent. As you can see, the extension is not visible at all from any public viewpoint. And there was mention about the material used on the side. Yes, it's concrete and rendered over, and which is the same as the walls outside on our neighbour's property of number 15. There are no windows in the extension at all. It's a storage shed, and the tall pine trees between the property, between the extension and number 15, largely screen the development. You can see, not a good picture there, but you can see that the front facade has now been restored, so it's much more pleasant and has visually enhanced the character of the property. You can see that the pine trees which have been cut back are much taller and significantly taller than the height of the extension, and if there is any loss of light, the effect of the pine trees is going to be far greater than the effect of the extension itself. There are policy reasons why the works that we've done are supported. In particular, number 117, which encourages and promotes the effective use of land and buildings. Number 118 does the same and says that you should give substantial weight to such developments. There is also advice in paragraph 54 where it says that planning authorities should consider conditions where otherwise they would reject if they find that the development is unacceptable. So, in conclusion, it's a small extension. It's the same height as before. The materials are consistent with the area. The extension is not visible from any public viewpoint. Yes, it's seen by the neighbours, but you saw the pictures there. You saw the pine trees, and you saw the shrubs between the pine trees. So, it is visible, but it's not all that dominant. The visual amenity at the front of the elevation is enhanced by the restoration of the front facade. It's a much safer environment, having removed those hazardous fuel tanks. There is no loss of amenity. The loss of light that is claimed is more probably because of the pine trees than the extension. It's a single-story extension. Effect, if any, is not significant in my view. In our view, in conclusion, refusal is not justified, and in our view, that would be unreasonable. Thank you.
Members have any comments? No. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Councillor Morgan, I thought you might want to say a few words on this one. Well, I'll have our pass that back across to Matt. Sorry. Ignore the notes at this end of the table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, committee members, council officers. First of all, I'm speaking on behalf of the residents in favour of the officers' recommendations. Officers, I'd like to say thank you very much for quite a thorough report. Unfortunately, your photographs don't actually show the real impact that this actually has on number 15. The actual building itself is right up to the boundary wall, in so much that they've actually had to chop down all the branches below 6 feet in height. So anything below 6 feet has actually been trimmed away from the trees. Also, any shrubs that were there as part of the boundary wall has been removed. So this boundary wall, there's the boundary that they've built right up to the boundary. I don't know if you guys have actually visited the site, but it is enormous. I would have been shocked if it happened to me, and I'm totally with our residents on this one. That yes, it is abominable and it should be refused. So, officers, I'd like to thank you, and I hope you do go ahead and refuse this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, I'll open it up. I'll start with Councillor. I'll start with Councillor Flynn, and then I think Councillor Higgins. I saw your pen slightly move, which is very good.
Just a question, actually, to James. If hypothetically this was refused, we've heard about the landscaping issues, and obviously it's a retrospective application. Is there any scope to see if any of those landscaping features which allegedly have been removed can be made good?
Perhaps can we take that when we... Yeah, I know. I'd like to just consider this report, and then we'll deal with what we may or may not be able to do because members may or may not agree with this report. I haven't heard from them yet. I know what the ward councillor would like, but I haven't heard... members? Councillor Higgins, go on, start me off.
I'm going to make it very simple. I'm going to go with officer's recommendation. This is there's too many questions. We've seen different items in the buildings, and it doesn't look right to me. If it doesn't look right, it doesn't walk like a duck, it doesn't quack like a duck, it ain't a duck. So
right, so you're going off to the recommendations.
And I'll second
Councillor Oswald,
thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I'll second it. I don't think it's worth making any comments on it. I think it's quite clearly a problem. Don't think it should be there.
The only issue I've got spinning to my right at the moment is that, having looked at some of these photographs and things, the head of planning is worrying about some of the wording in refusal reason 2.
Yeah, so
as to whether we can fully justify all of it.
So it's definitely harmful to the character appearance of Gatehill Estate, so I'm comfortable with reason 1. Reason 2, my view is that it is visually intrusive, and so over-dominance and loss of outlook and visual intrusion all apply. The applicant did raise the point, as I understand it, of effectively, well, you've got, when all the foliage was there was some, in effect, loss of light, and therefore the original situation now compared with the proposed, is there actually any additional overshadowing or loss of light? And that's the bit I'm slightly worried that we might be going too far in terms of including overshadowing and loss of light. So it's definitely visually intrusive. I'm not trying to undermine that, but I'm just concerned.
Could I ask, therefore, that committee's indulgence to delegate to the head of planning to review committee refusal 2, come up with most appropriate wording?
What I would put to committee, my preference would be that committee either decide that they're happy with reason 2, or my recommendation is you'd remove overshadowing and loss of light.
Yep, you go with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got even better. I've got a decision. Okay, can I sorry.
Say something very quickly. Yes, okay, loss of light and that, fine. But will you please leave in loss of outlook? Because...
Haven't taken that out. Haven't taken that out.
No, that's
loss
fine,
of light only.
because as far as I'm concerned, there's a big loss of outlook.
You know,
Between looking at lovely green foliage and looking at concrete walls.
What I'm suggesting to committee is you keep in over-dominance, loss of outlook and visual intrusion, but you delete loss of light and overshadowing because
the existing trees may have done that anyway.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, all those in favour of refusal, please show me. Thank you for that. With regard to the point made by Councillor Flynn, obviously we've now refused this, obviously we can't impose conditions on it. What I will of course ask is that planning enforcement review this site in its entirety with this refusal now on the table. So I think it's entirely appropriate because there appears to be more than one thing floating around. Okay, agenda item 9. We're past petitions now. So 5 Chilton Road, Eastcote, is into patios. Always a stimulating.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is a retrospective one. It's for the installation of a patio to the rear. Members may remember this site. It came before committee several months ago now. Yeah. The application site comprises a 2-storey detached dwelling located at the northern side of Chilton Road. To the rear of the property is a raised patio section which leads down to the main garden, which is attractively landscaped with the majority laid to lawn. I'll just show members, you may remember this large extension that was approved by committee several months ago. What we have is the raised patio to the rear, which is we all actually saw when you considered the application, but it didn't form part of the application at the time, with these large, I don't actually know what they are, PVC sort of plastic 1.8 metre high screens. You can see on both sides there how that would look. The retrospective raised, I'll show members the photos actually, so that's what you saw at committee, and so the 2-storey extension will go up, excuse me, can't make this work, there we go, we'll go up to this point here, and then this would be the raised patio area to the rear. So that's the raised patio area. This is where the 2-storey rear extension will go up to, which we've approved a 2-storey rear extension. So the retrospective raised patio area is located at the rear of the property. The patio is built from bricks, which match the existing rear extension, or the proposed rear extension. The size of the patio measures approximately 3.7 metres in length, including the stairs, and spans the entire width of the property. It is noted that the topography of the property has a gentle gradient sloping downwards towards the rear garden space. When viewed from the rear, the height of the raised patio measured 0.82 metres and has an overall height of 1.72 metres, including the handrail. On the other side of the patio, joining the neighbouring properties, 2 1.8 metre high PVC non-see-through fencing panels and box hedging are proposed. So that's what I was showing members here on this plan. Obviously they're doing that to prevent overlooking of the neighbours. The additional fencing provides screening to the proposal to overcome potential overlooking concerns. As such, the overall height of the structure would amount to 2.62 metres, which is over and above the maximum height of a permitted development boundary treatment, which would be 2 metres. Proposed non-see-through fencing would have the appearance and impact of a second-generation conservatory extension. By virtue of size, bulk, design, the proposed would represent an unduly intrusive and incongruous form of development. Furthermore, the proposed will adversely impact on amenity, outlook, daylight and sunlight to number 3 Chilton Road. And for the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger.
Thank you, Chair. There's not really much to say on this. I think officers have said it all for the reasons, so I actually support the recommendations for refusal.
I'm happy.
Oh, anybody else got any views on this one? No, all those in favour of refusal, please indicate. Thank you very much. That one's refused. Right, I'm now going to do agenda item B, which was the urgent item. For clarity, as stated at the top of this, I agree to accept this as an urgent item, given that it is a declared asset of community value, and that's the reason we've gone to expedite this one. You will also see in the addendum, because we're well inside the consultation period, that if we go with what's in the officer report, that the head of planning, in conjunction with myself and the Labour lead, will need to consider it. Just in case there are any comments come in the consultation period, they've got to be appropriately considered. Okay, Matt, that said, would you take me through item 11A? That's it, that's the one.
Okay, I'll just, the application seeks permission for the redevelopment of the existing entrance doors and side light with a new shop front for the approved public house unit. The proposed timber shop front includes new downlighters, planters and glass-fronted signage reading the 3 wishes. Set members the layout of the pub there, and you've got, as you can see, proposed frontage with the 3 wishes public house. I think members are very familiar with the site. It is the only asset of community value in the borough, in Northwood, right by Northwood Hills Tube Station. The proposal is considered acceptable in principle. The subject to the submission of details pertaining to the proposed lighting. Oh no, I'm taking it off. To the proposed lighting materials and colours, as well as the. Sorry, I've written the wrong thing. The proposal is considered acceptable in principle, and as such, the application is recommended for approval. I'll just take members back to the addendum where there was that clarification about from the legal officer about when we can actually make the decision, because it's actually not the consultation period hasn't expired yet. And for the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just possibly not a planning reason, or it may be. Please correct me on this. But obviously, it's an ACV listing, so there is quite a lot of interest in the site. The name, the 3 Wishes. The site was obviously previously known as the William Joel, which is obviously a local name given the Joel Street connection. Are you able to give us any indication of why that name was chosen? Because it has no sort of local connotations as far as I'm aware of.
It's, to be honest with you, absolutely no idea. It's just a name chosen by the applicant, and that's what they've come to us with, so we're assessing that. Thank you.
Councillor Oswald, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Flynn is seconded. Nobody else is raising a hand, so that's always good news. All those in favour, please clearly show. Good, that's that one. I will now move to the other item on the same site, which is the other half of this site, i.e. the retail building we have agreed, and an application in relation to that.
Thank you, Chairman. The second application seeks permission for a proposed new shop front, access ramp and 4 cycle stands. The proposed shop front would comprise double glazed windows with entrance and exit doors and grey frames. The proposed access ramp is 1 in 15 gradient and would utilise grey metal balustrades. This obviously relates mainly to the co-op element. You've got the existing and proposed ground floors there. We can see to the front of the unit the ramp and the cycle stands. At present, the proposal is considered acceptable in principle, and actually, if you can see, it's all boarded up, but the ramp and the cycle stands will be to the front area there. The proposal is considered acceptable in principle with regard to its impact on the street scene, neighbours, the local highway network, landscape and access. We will need to enter into a Section 106 agreement on this, however, just for reference. I may explain. The front area here, you can see just in front of the pub, is whilst owned by the applicant, is actually public highway land, and therefore we'll have to go through the process of stopping it up so they can put the ramp on and the cycle stands. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
The addendum on this one deletes the landscaping condition because it might be a bit obvious it's going to be a bit difficult to landscape. One question from me, just looking at it, why is it referred to the Mayor under Article 5? What's the... well, it's in item 10, it's the first item in the S106. Why are we... It seems a bit small for the Mayor to be...
I think the word typographical error come into play.
Copy and paste.
My apologies, Chairman, that is definitely wrong.
And I'm just looking at it going, this is big enough to go to the Mayor. Right, okay. Can I open it for discussion? Yes, Councillor Flynn. Sorry, I meant Higgins. My brain.
Yeah, I'll go with officer recommendation. I haven't really got a problem. Although the picture that we've been shown is a lot different for what it actually looks like at the moment, which I'm just a bit concerned why we're not having more of an up-to-date.
Well, we get the pictures when the officers go out and take them. That's the problem.
But we're asking. I mean,
this is much nearer.
What I'm trying to say.
Your point is it's much nearer complete than that shows.
It's complete. So the question is that obviously, not in this case, it's fine, but in other cases it could be very misleading that we don't know what the situation is. So that's my point.
Take your point.
But on that, I will go with officer recommendation.
Councillor Melvin, did you raise a hand? No, you didn't. You're second. Anybody else got any views on this? No. Okay. All those in favour, please show me. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, I'm going to ask if you want a presentation. It's change of use from a hairdresser's A1 to a nail bar, which is technically sui generis, but tell me what the difference is, I can't. One does nails, one does hair.
I'll go with officer's recommendation.
I'll second.
All those in favour, please show me. Thank you very much. Can I have the feed switched off, please, before we do the enforcement item?